I awoke with pain and knew it was time. Indirama and Dharanima tended to me along with a couple of younger women, while outside the hut, Valmiki and the other rishis chanted prayers. I asked Indra if they did this for every child born in the ashram, but she shook her head. Valmiki has meditated on these boys and knows they have a great destiny. They will be even greater warriors and kings than their father. That is why they must be welcomed with the proper auspicious prayers. When I saw them, red and wrinkled, swaddled tight in the soft white cloth woven by my friends, I forgot all sadness. Indira Ma placed them on my chest, where they didn't cry but listened, wide eyed, to my voice calling to them. Then Valmiki came in and blessed the boys and named them Love and Kush. I had never heard such names, but the sage said they would come to him in meditation. These boys would be raised like no other. Their greatest teacher would be their mother. Their world would be that of the hermitage. Their playground would be the forest. Because of this, their strengths would be unique. It stood to reason then that their names had to be unique too. I took comfort in what Valmiki said, though in the back of my mind I worried. How would I, or even Valmiki, sequestered as we were in the forest, educate them in the right way? How would we teach them all that worldly princess needed to know? Valmiki was asking me a question. Lost in my thoughts, I had not heard it, and he had to repeat himself. Shall we send news to Ram? Ah, his name. I hadn't heard it since Urmila left. No one in the ashram mentioned him because they did not want to upset me. I thought I had grown an armor strong enough by now to deal with it. How wrong I was. His name sent a sharp stab of pain through me, worse than anything I had experienced during the birthing. I turned my face away so Valmiki would not see my foolish tears. No, I said, he does not deserve to know. But inside, my traitor heart still hoped. Surely he would send a messenger asking for news. After all, he knew when the babies were due. Surely, even if he did not want me, he would take his sons back to the palace, bring them up royally as they deserved to be. I longed for that to happen even as I dreaded it. But no one came, and finally I was forced to face the truth. Ram no longer cared for me, or if he did, it was pushed deep down inside him, suffocated by kingship. And since the children came from my body and were subject to the same gossip and doubts, he could not afford to care for them either. After the births, the entire hermitage rallied around me. Though they never spoke of Ram's continued silence, they were outraged by it and did whatever they could to keep me in good spirits. Love and Kush, being the first babies born here in a long time, were darling of the ashram, passed around from lap to lap, kissed and cuddled, and so dearly loved that they never learned to cry. They may have lost their father, but they had gained the entire community to love them unreservedly and teach them and spoil them and thankfully give them a scolding when they needed it, which was often because they were always landing in some mischief or other. They called Valmiki and Indirama grandfather and grandmother, while all the others became their uncles, aunts, or cousins. Compared to Ram, alone in his splendid, loveless palace, we were the lucky ones. As soon as they were old enough, Valmiki made sure Love and Kush received a proper education. In the mornings, along with all the boys that were sent for study to Valmiki's Gurukul, they learned the Vedas with all the rituals that brought blessings to humanity. In time, they were taught the wisdom of the Upanishads. They learned to chant and sing, and their voices were so clear and melodious that even the denizens of the air, Gandharvas and Apsaras, paused to listen. After lunch, they did chores with the other Rishikumars, taking the cattle out to graze, or bathing the cows, or repairing the thatched huts, or learning to collect the right kind of wood to build a yajna fire that would not smoke. In the evenings, though, Valmiki took them aside for private lessons. This is where they learned about wartime strategies and peacetime statesmanship, how to direct an army into intricate formations and inspire them to fight with everything they had, how to be a good ruler and make the right decisions when people brought you complicated disputes, how to interview justice with mercy. At first, I was astonished by the breadth of Valmiki's knowledge. How could a simple rishi possibly know such complicated statecraft? Then I remembered that Ram himself had learned all that made him into a great warrior and king from sage Vashishta. Furthermore, Valmiki explained that much of the information he needed to impart to the boys came to him in meditation. What really took me aback was when, after those lessons were done, Valmiki tied up his long hair and beard, knotted his dhoti tightly around his waist, and taught the boys how to fight with sword and staff. In spite of his age, he was strong and wiry and moved fast, often disarming the boys in minutes. He grinned at my astonishment and said, I was not born Rishi, you know. One of these days, I will tell you about my colorful past. Love and Kush loved these lessons and the fact that they were secret and not to be spoken of. Their favorite, though, was archery. A twinge went through me as I watched them, for the bow was their father's favorite weapon too. Soon the boys had learned to fashion their own bows and arrows, great intricate ones that looked far too big for them. But they had no problems handling them and spent all their free time running off into the forest to practice. I had forbidden them to kill any creatures unless it threatened their lives. But they had great fun competing with each other, shooting stone chips off distant mountains and dislodging berries that dotted faraway hedges. I too played my part in the education of the boys. We went on long walks through the forest where they learned to recognize medicinal herbs, particularly the ones that staunched wounds and healed injuries, and how to use them. At night, when we were retired to our little cottage at the edge of the ashram, I taught them self defense, all that I had learned in Mithila, how to fight calmly when no weapons were available, how to fight without hatred or vengeance, turning the attacker's rage against him or her, I told them, remembering Shurpanaka. Putting my pain aside, I focused on remembering the evenings in Panchavati, Ram and Lakshman arguing excitedly about weapons, and wrote down all I could recall about summoning magical astras. I did not think they would work because I was sure I had forgotten some crucial detail or other. So I was astonished when the boys chanted the words of power I had given them and shining astras materialized. The boys did not seem taken aback. I watched in wonder and trepidation while they held with confidence and a certain strange familiarity weapons that could blast through mountains or vaporize entire armies. They spoke gently and respectfully to the Astras, bowed to them, and sent them back to their realms, requesting them to return in the moment of their need. Clearly, they were their father's sons. And mine, I thought, remembering the special relationship I had had in my childhood with Shiva's bow. Most of all, I loved my children because they were kind to all around them, humans as well as animals. They were not perfect, by no means. They had tempers that flared up at seemingly small things and they could be maddeningly stubborn. They also tended to boss over the other boys they studied with, even ones that were older. But with me, they were particularly gentle, perhaps because they sensed my sorrow, which, although I tried to shake it off, clung to me as stubborn as a shadow. They brought me little gifts from their trips into the forest, pretty stones, a garland they had woven, a chunk of honeycomb, a colorful feather. They hugged me often, not caring who might be watching, and at night they lay on either side of me with their arms around my neck, asking for stories. Their hunger for stories was insatiable, and they wouldn't allow me to repeat a tale. I had to search deep into my childhood memory and was often forced to use my imagination. Sometimes I thought it is true what people say. Every darkness is edged with light. In a palace, bound by my royal duties, I would never have had so much time for my children. We would never have been so close to each other, known each other so well. But here was a strange thing. Even though Love and Kush were curious about everything, they never asked me a single question about their father. Was it because they believed what Valmiki had implied, though he never actually told them an untruth? Their father, a member of the ashram community, had traveled to a faraway land to practice austerities and was never heard from again. Or was it because they knew the question would pierce me to my heart's core? Thanks for listening.